Joining me is Fang. He's a contributing writer at The Nation. Lee, last week we had this story which went kind of viral where we actually talked a little bit about this company, Hart Intercivic, and the connections between Bain and Company, Hart Intercivic, and of course the voting machines that they manufacture, which have failed or not worked properly in the past, and how this all doesn't really sound that good when we talk about the connection between Romney and how votes will be counted. You emailed me because your latest, you have a new piece in The Nation which actually outlines an even closer tie between Mitt Romney and how votes will be counted. Let's start there.
Well, this company, Hart Intercivic, was actually purchased by HIG Capital. That's the private equity firm that you discussed in your piece last week on your radio show. But there's an interesting business relationship with the Romney family, with the Romney family investment firm. HIG Capital is one of about 20 private equity firms that has a very special relationship with Mitt Romney's son, Tag Romney. Tag Romney runs his own private equity firm called Solomir Capital. And Solomir Capital doesn't do what many private equity firms do, and that's analyze and buy companies. Actually, what they do is specialize in forming partnerships with other private equity firms, doing deals with them, helping their elite set of investors co-invest and basically get a share of their business. So there's a connection there if you want to scrutinize Tag's relationship of businesses. And I'm not qualified to speak on the issues that you raised on electronic voting machines, but I will say that any voting machine, any type of part of our process of voting should be void of politics. And it is, I suppose, a concern that this large voting machine company with lots of voting machines in Colorado and other states has a very close business relationship with one of the people running for office.
Yeah, I was on, a couple days after that piece went viral last week, I was on a right-wing radio show, and I was asked to comment about that piece, and the arguments that the host of that show was making were, wait a second, David, so you have a conspiracy theory that somehow Hart Intercivic is controlling the voting machines? The voting machines are controlled by the local election officials. And I said, listen, I'm not making a conspiracy theory in the sense that I know exactly what is going on. What I'm saying is when you hear that there are connections between one of the candidates and the voting machines, that's broadly concerning. And on the right, we seem to hear this it's complete lack of any kind of acceptance that any link is there. However, you can bet for sure if this was Barack Obama being connected to these voting machines, this is all we would hear about on Fox News, on Rush Limbaugh, so on and so forth. So you're making an interesting point, which is we don't know exactly the extent and logistics to which this could actually play a role. Are we saying Tag Romney is going to be standing behind the machine, adding votes for Mitt Romney? No, we're not saying that, but it's a business relationship that's very concerning, and I think that's really the point we're all trying to make here, isn't it?
Sure. And, it kind of raises other issues as well, because there's a great conceit with the whole Romney campaign. Mitt Romney says that he believes in free enterprise. He wants to reduce the size of government. Well, if you look at the type of businesses owned by Tag Romney's business partners, I mean, it's literally scores of different private enterprises that are set up to collect millions, if not billions, in taxpayer subsidies or other work with the government on government contracts. Hart Intercivic is just one of many. So in a way, this election is about a contest of different interest groups that are all looking to influence the government in their own special way. And this is what happens in many different industries. We can talk about voting machines, but really everything from weapons to food to healthcare There are many lobbies and businesses. The reason that they're getting involved in this election is to maintain the flow of government contracts. Is this the case with Hart Intercivic and HIG Capital? No, I'm not saying that. But look at the overall dynamic of this campaign. Why are so many private equity firms that own businesses that bill the government contributing, funding these super PACs, and forming business partnerships with the candidate's son? In this story that I wrote recently, we look at how HIG Capital, the same firm that is involved in these voting machines, they also own an environmental waste firm that works for the military. Another one of Tag Romney's business partners owns the scooter store, this company that's been accused of Medicare fraud, because they're the ones that you see on late night television running commercials promising anyone who's of Medicare age that they can get a free scooter, kind of regardless of medical need. So many of these companies are worried that the government will crack down and end these lucrative contracts, and that might be why they've cozied up so closely with the candidates.
Right, and really what this gets us to, getting beyond the potential implications with this election and the voting machines, into a broader issue that affects Republicans and Democrats, which is there's too much connection between politicians, their friends, buddies, and former politicians who are now involved in managing or investing in companies that are doing any number of things that are directly supported, or at least income is derived from how politicians vote, right? A lot of these companies, the reason they have, I mean, it's obvious, right? The reason that we have lobbying is because these companies want politicians to vote or to pass bills in certain ways that will give them more revenue. And that's really the broad concerning thing of that's a structural problem.
Right, and a lot of these businesses aren't really competing in a free market. They aren't getting a leg up by providing a better service at a lower cost or in a more efficient manner. The way that they're getting ahead are simply by political connections. They're the ones who are simply spending the most in politics. They're the ones funding the ads. They're the ones who are supplying resources to the candidates. And in some cases, like the case with Tag Romney, Mitt Romney's son, they formed a very tight multi-million-dollar relationship with the family of Mitt Romney, who's running for president. I mean, Tag Romney stands to make Tag Romney and his business partners stand to make over $16 million in management fees simply for having this relationship with these private equity firms. And he's also paid on incentive pay based on the performance of his funds. So you can only imagine when these candidates win office, whether it's in the White House, Congress, or in governor's offices all across the country, when they have these relationships with these big, powerful investors, they essentially become almost lobbyists for their benefactors.
All right, again, we're talking to Lee Fang, contributing writer to The Nation. The article, Tag Team, the Romney Family Recipe for Crony Capitalism, is available at thenation.com. Thanks as always, Lee.
David, thanks for having me.
All right, let's take a break. Back with plenty.